Hi, it's Lee the History Boy. Notice how I'm sitting on the toilet, but I'm not actually using it. Yeah, that's my Maurice Moss impression for all the IT crowd, watchers out there. Anyway, let's get to the subject of the matter. This is an intro, by the way. Yes, this is the intro to 20 questions. That's 20 questions about just trivia in general, films, history. I do try to bulk it out with history, but also obscure things that people might actually know because people's viewpoints on things are always interesting. So yeah, be sure to like, subscribe, comment on all my 20 questions, episodes, and well, yeah, this is Liam J. Roberts, Lee the History Boy, with 20 questions, and that's every fortnight, aka around the time of 2 weeks. There's not an exact day all the time, like with my fun facts, but I'm kind of doing this instead. So, welcome to 20 Questions with your host, Liam James Roberts, aka Lee the History Boy, or just Lee, if you like. Anyway, stay tuned. Hello, this is Lee the History Boy, and it's that time of the week, or roundabout between weeks. And what I mean by that is pretty much every 2 to 3 weeks, yes, it's exactly what it says on the tin, 20 questions. So yeah, let's just crack on with it. 1. Jenny Wolfe is a character in a novel by which author? John Grisham, Lee Child, or James Patterson? And those of you who said James Patterson, you would be absolutely bang on. I'm reading it right now, actually. Never read any Lee Child's novels, the Jack Reacher stuff, and I haven't read John Grisham, but I like putting the name in there, especially seeing as I'm into crime stuff and law and procedure type stuff. I suppose it runs kind of in the family. Granny used to work as a legal secretary, so it's in the blood, I suppose. John Candy's maternal relatives were from where? Denmark, Germany, or Poland? And well done if you answered C, Poland. Yeah, I decided to put that in as like a little fun fact kind of mini thing. What I'm getting at is I watched, if any of you out there have watched or the series Autopsy, the last hours of, insert celebrity name, when he was growing up, his, speaking of In the Blood earlier, John's dad and then his dad before him, they all died of heart attacks very suddenly, very young, sometime in the 30s. So John's mum was left to raise him and his brothers on her own, basically, and the favourite comfort food of John would be pierogies or pierogies if you're American. But yeah, like Polish, um, like sort of cheese pastry type things, and that was probably why he started on it with his weight gain. Not to disparage the man or anything, and I'm thinking about. I've just reminded myself there's that biopic coming out, or it's already out. I'm not aware whether it's out or it's coming out. Um, where it's Ryan Reynolds as John Candy, and it's I Like Me. A little reference to his monologue in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Marine reptile Liperodon stalks the waters of what's now which English county? That made more sense in my head, how I worded it. Anyway, A. Devonshire, B. Nottinghamshire, or C. Oxfordshire. And well done to any fellow Walking with Dinosaurs, fanatics, nerds, whatever. Speaking of comfort things, comfort show of mine, as is Walking with Beasts. If you said Oxfordshire, you would be right. That was the setting of Cruel Sea. I don't think I repeated this question. I did a similar question of with that name in there in one of the options. Yeah, it's all right. George III is said to have inherited the blood disease porphyria from which relative? His father, his mother, or his grandfather? And if you said B, his mother, you would be correct. Also known as it's also known as blue blood disease, and I think it's actually that in a really dark kind of gallows humour kind of term over the centuries. It's where I think it's where we get the general term blue blood for snobs and royalty and nobles and posh people and so on and so forth. It's because apparently, well, porphyria, where it's supposed to be a disease where your blood doesn't oxygenate properly, so it comes out blue. And poor old Mad King George would urinate his own blood, which was blue. It's a wonder that he lived as long as he did. It's amazing. Those German Hanoverian kings had some strong genes, despite genetic factors. Somehow. Gordon Ramsay trained under which chef? A. Keith Floyd, B. Marco Pierre White, or C. Rick Stein? If you said Marco Pierre White, you would be correct. I put Keith Floyd and Rick Stein in there for kind of related reasons, other than being English chefs. I'm not calling Gordon Ramsay a Scotsman. He's not. I don't care if his parents are Scottish and he was born in Scotland. He was raised in England. Listen to his, Nancy Boy kind of accent, somewhere down south. Anyway, region and country / countryman bashing out of the way. yeah, Keith Floyd I put in there as a little in joke with a book I'm reading currently, The A to Z of Hellraisers. He's in there. Basically, he's in there because he liked his tipple. Actually, yeah, Keith Floyd couldn't stand Gordon Ramsay. He said if he given the chance, he'd like to napalm the lot of them, to quote him in the book. Rick Stein was other than me liking Rick Stein as like a comfort TV watcher when there's bugger all on. He was mates with Keith Floyd. I don't know if he actually met Marco Pierre White or he knows Gordon Ramsay, but anyway, that's just the third option. Tom Kenny, known for being the voice of SpongeBob and Spyro the Dragon, voiced Teen Titans villain Mumbo, but which Spider-Man baddie has he voiced? A. Electra, B. Dr. Octopus, or C. Scorpion? And very well done to you Spidey geeks out there. If you said B, Dr. Octopus, you would be correct. He's the version of Dr. Octavius in Ultimate Spider-Man, which I saw bits and bats of. Didn't really get into it that much. What are you talking about, Arm? Is a quote from which of these space-based horror films? A. Event Horizon, B. The Cloverfield Paradox, or C. Alien Romulus? And well done to you sci-fi horror heads out there. If you said B, The Cloverfield Paradox, you will be correct. That was a quote by crewmate Mundy, played by the surprisingly versatile but hilarious Chris O'Dowd. Known mostly in the cult British comedy, the IT Crowd, Roy, basically. The early primate god Inertia lived in the forests of which modern-day country? Greece, Turkey, or Germany? And again, like with the question about the Pleurodon, this is a one I pulled out from fond memories and rewatches of Walking with Beasts, also known as Walking with Prehistoric Monsters on the other side of the pond, so to speak. Yeah, and that was an animal in early distant relative of ours, close but distant relative of ours, that was living in Germany. I think they used Indonesia as a double for Germany 49 million years ago, because everything still would have been baking hot back then, pretty much. And for all we know, Germany and Indonesia and Australasia, geographically might have been all part of the same kind of supercontinent or near enough each other. But yeah, if you said Germany, you'll be correct. The cerebral bore is a weapon in which series of video games? Is this Halo, Half-Life, or Turok? And well done to those who said C, Turok. Which of these two famous people had to have emergency surgery due to their level of alcoholism? John Bonham and Oliver Reed, Jim Morrison and Phil Lynott, or C, Eric Clapton and Richard Burton? And if you lot who said C, Eric Clapton and Richard Burton, you would be correct. I got both of these incoming factoids from, again, the A to Z of Hellraisers. Clapton had ulcers near his pancreas, and Richard Burton was reputedly supposed to have, to quote some sources in that book as well, his spinal column was supposed to be coated in alcohol, and he barely pulled through after doing a death scene on a film. The director went to the makeup guy. You've done a brilliant job on him, or some effects. And the makeup guy goes, I haven't touched him. And director realises that Burton is on death's door, basically. So goes the story. Who was the voice of God in the rose glass horror film Saint Maud? Was this Anthony Hopkins, Jennifer L, or Mothith Clark? I don't think I'm butchering that Welsh pronunciation that badly anyway. An addictively disturbing film this is, especially when you watch it alongside people as well. If you said C, Mothith Clark, you would be correct. It's lowered down. Jennifer L are put in there because she's a big part of it. I try not to spoil it too much. Anthony Hopkins I just put in there because he has a compelling voice. He actually portrayed a god, a version of a god, Odin, of course, in Thor, with his compelling voice, stage voice, and because he's Welsh like Clark as well. Despite being Mexican in the show Breaking Bad and its spin-off prequel Better Call Saul, the Cousins actors are actually from where? Belize, Argentina, or Honduras? I don't think I put this question in before in one of the previous episodes. I did do one about Lalo and Hector. Yeah. Anyway, if you managed to think through me waffling there, if you said, oh, you just knew it already, the brothers Luis Moncada and I always forget the other brother's name, the Moncadas anyway. If you said Honduras, you would be correct. Argentina I put in there just because, and Belize, because I am a history boy, a history nerd. I put Belize in there because it used to be called British Honduras, but not related at all to the modern day Honduras now. Jerry Beggy was a member of which American military group in World War II? Was this the Bushmasters, the Buffalo Soldiers, or the Wind Talkers? If you said the Wind Talkers, you would be correct. Made famous by the film, well, Wind Talkers, where Nicolas Cage leads a squadron of, I think, Navajo Indians in the Pacific Theatre against the Japanese. They were to talk like their language over radio communications when the Japanese were listening in, and they had no idea what they were saying because they never heard the language. Adam Beach played him, I believe. I know he was in it. Speaking of Turok earlier, where's the voice of John Turok in the animated film based on the games. Buffalo Soldiers put in there because they were mostly, again, in World War II they were led by a white man, by Douglas MacArthur, but most of them, I think they were I think they were entirely. Oh no. Anyway, I'll get to that. The Buffalo Soldiers were, I think, Navajos as well, but mostly they were black or African American, and some Latinos, as were the Bushmasters. But they had, I think, more white men in there. Also, in World War II, as I was kind of getting to, they were led by Douglas MacArthur. Dallas Roberts was in which of these Liam Neeson action movies? The Grey, Walk Among the Tombstones, or Cold Pursuit? And if you said The Grey, those of you who said The Grey, you would be correct. He's actually quite sympathetic in that, but Dallas Roberts is usually quite creepy in TV things, especially like in the loads of Law and Order things he's been in. He always murders someone in that. Walk Among the Tombstones I put in there because, again, creepy people in it. David Harbour is one half of the bad guys in that. He works well with his partner, but he kind of annoys him. If you haven't seen that, I'm not going to spoil it. It annoys him. You can see it on his face all the time. He's very quiet as his partner, played by a French actor I can't remember the name of. And Cold Pursuit. Interesting fact about that. That's actually a remake of a Norwegian film. Those of you who don't know already. Where it's for some reason it's Japanese gangsters versus Serbs. But in the Liam Neeson version, it's kind of mostly waspy kind of Americans versus Indian gangsters. And Raul Trujillo, Mexican actor, is very good in it as like as the hand of the Indian boss. And if you've seen Apocalypto, you'll know that he's the Mayan slave driver, Zero Wolf. I think it was directed by the same guy who did the original. Like, I guess you could say. Actually, I was going to say Old Boy, but I think the remake was actually directed by Spike Lee of all people. Yeah, the original director of the original South Korean version might have been a executive director or something, for all I know. But you know. The Solomonari, I think I'm pronouncing it right, were wizards from which folklore? Italian, Romanian, or Andorran? Where's it stopped? Sorry, I was just listening to my music. Looks like I'm not now. Doesn't really matter. Don't care anymore. Don't care. You know, like that meme of that Liverpool FC fan, if you know, you know, so to speak. Anyway, waffling on over with and managed to cut through all that noise. If you said B, Romanian, you would be correct. Andorran I put in there just because it's an overlooked country. Italian, sort of semi-related to Romanian in its way in history and so on, and I guess language stuff, you know. I hope I haven't offended any Romanians / Hungarians and, you know, in that area, for example, or Italians. Yeah, I found out about the Solomonari through, Robert Eggers' version of Nosferatu. I think he based it heavily on the book, where Count Orlok is much older than Vlad Tepes, Vlad the Impaler Dracula, who has nothing to do with him other than the fact that they occupy the same neck of the woods, and they're noblemen. He's meant to be much older. Count Orlok is supposed to be some kind of wizard. Before he became a vampire, he was a wizard, and the Solomonari are explicitly Romanian wizards who were able to control dragons and cause storms, which is what I believe the crewmates of the Demeter, or whatever the ship is called in the Nosferatu version, because they kind of borrow from each other. For example, it's back and forth between Transylvania and Germany, rather than Transylvania and England. And you know, it's in the Vlad one, it's in the Vlad ones, it's for some reason it's London in the more modern ones for some reason, but it was always Whitby in the original Bram Stoker novels. But with the case of Count Orlok, he's supposed to be from a time where Romania was actually Dacia or Dacia, which is also where the name of the car comes from. The ancient word for Romania, what was to become known as Romania. Orlok is supposed to be from there, and he's supposed to be some kind of nobleman sorcerer. And on the ship, there's when he's in his coffin on the ship, there's a storm, and it's pretty much implied that he's causing it. / there's some superstitious crew members on there, and they think there's some kind of scary wizard causing the storm, which they're mostly right, but it's worse in their case. Soul Calibur's Volder was born in which modern-day Italian region? Sicily, Sardinia, or Calabria? And to anyone who said Sicily, you would be correct. Born in Palermo, when Sicily wasn't even Italian, it was more its own thing / more Grecian, Kingdom of Sicily. Italy has its very weird, complicated political history, even into fairly modern times, even into World War II days, which is quite very modern, of course. Barry White saved my life is a line from which fun-loving criminal's song? Is this Scooby Snacks, Love Unlimited, or Smoke 'em? And this was a band that my mum and dad liked to listen to, so I got it kind of through osmosis. Overlooked bands, I recommend you look them up on Spotify or wherever, on YouTube, wherever, maybe Spotify. Love Unlimited is my favourite song by them. Don't really like Scooby Snacks, I don't really care for it for some reason, but Smoke 'em's a good one. But the answer is, well done to those of you who said Love Unlimited. Yeah, it's very catchy. You got back with your ex-wife, da 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 da. Yeah. Thundercracker is a villain in which Pixar film? Sorry, bloody ice cream pen. Is this The Good Dinosaur, The Incredibles, or Toy Story 3? And if you said The Good Dinosaur, you would be correct. I was actually surprised how much I enjoyed this film when it came out. I was like coming up to 20, so I didn't think I'd enjoy it without kind of cartoony it was or whatever, and with the way the animation is. But I liked it. One thing that Pixar films do really well consistently is that they'll have surprisingly disturbing villains. They almost kind of arc back to or channel some of the old kind of Disney villains, but without it being completely Disney, because Pixar was its kind of separate thing and then became Disney Pixar officially. But Thundercracker gave me the creeps. I didn't expect Greg, the wimpy kid's dad to be that scary. Right, second to last question. Batari and Ool are bosses in which video game? Far Cry 4, Far Cry Primal, or Far Cry 6? And if you said Primal, you would be correct. Who portrayed the father of John C. Reilly's character in the comedy film Step Brothers? Richard. And those of you who said Richard Jenkins, you would be correct. And well done to those also who caught the kind of theme of the selection of people, so to speak. Yeah, Richard Jenkins, Sid Haig, Kurt Russell, all those three were in Bone Tomahawk. And yeah, that's pretty much it. And that's it for this week's 20 Quiztions. Remember to like, subscribe, comment, and so on and so forth. There's not really much else to say. Hope you enjoyed or will enjoy. Uploading time, present in the moment. Blah 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 blah. Time is relative, more or less. Kind of. Yeah. Just remember to like, subscribe, comment, and blah 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 blah. And I will see you in the next ones within the space of 2 to 3 weeks.